This first video will cover all the multiple choice questions on the sample chapter test, and then there will be follow-up videos for the open response part of the test. So the first multiple choice question, use functions f and g and find the value equal to f composite g at 3. Remember that this open circle right here means composition, which means basically you're doing f at g at 3. So first we're going to put 3 into the g rule, get that output, and use it as the input for f. So if we put 3 into g, then we're going to get 4 times 3 plus 1. So that's 12 plus 1 is 13. So now we're going to find f at 13. So go to the f rule right here and put a 13 in for the x, and 2 times 13 is 26, minus 3 is equal to 23. So 23 is our final answer. Looks like C. On number 2, suppose that we have this cubic function. Which expression is equal to f inverse? When you're finding the inverse, you want to undo everything that's been done to x. So there are a couple of ways to set that up. Since this is not a simple linear equation, let's switch our input and our output. Instead of f at x, which is our output, let's call it x, which is an input. And then where x is the input, we're going to call that f inverse plus 1. Now we want this to be our output, so we're going to solve for this. So the first thing we need to do is subtract 1. So x minus 1 is equal to the cube root of f inverse. When you want to get rid of a cube root, you cube it. Just like if you want to get rid of a square root, you square it. So if I cube that cube root, then I'm left with f inverse, which is what I'm looking for. And then I have x minus 1, the grouping is important, to the third power. And you see that's answer choice B. Number 3, suppose that the graph of f is such that x maps to this expression right here, and it contains the points 2, 0, 3, 0, and 4, negative 6. And we want to find the value of A. Well, if I use this point where the input is 2, then that's going to zero everything out. So I won't be able to find what A is, because basically everything's going to be to 0. And the same thing happens if I use the input of 3, then everything's going to zero out. So this is the input that I need to use in order to find A. So this is just a little piece of that Lagrange interpolation. They're not asking you for the whole thing, but just how you find that number that's in front. So let's use this point where 4 is our input and negative 6 has to be our output at that time. So I'm going to have A times, instead of x, I'm going to put 4 minus 2. Instead of x, I'm using 4 minus 3. And when I put 4 in, I have to get negative 6 out. Now just simplify those numbers. So 4 minus 2 is 2, 4 minus 3 is 1, equals negative 6. So this is 2 times A equals negative 6. Divide both sides by 2, and A is equal to negative 3. It's like B. Number 4, when you divide this polynomial by x minus 2, what is the remainder? The remainder theorem tells us that when we divide by x minus 2, that f at 2 will equal the remainder. So we have two choices here. We can actually divide this by x minus 2, or we can just substitute 2 into the function right here. And I used f, but this problem calls it p. It doesn't matter, it works the same way. So I'm going to choose to put 2 in as an input to find that remainder. If you want to divide by x minus 2 and find the remainder that way, then you can do that. So I have 2 times 2 to the third power minus 3 times 2 squared plus 5 times 2 minus 1. So that's 2 times 8 is 16, minus 3 times 4 is 12, plus 10, minus 1, and this negative 16 minus 12 is going to be 4, minus 1 is 3, plus 10 is going to be 13. So C is our answer. And you can use a calculator there if you are not comfortable with the arithmetic. Last multiple choice question, which expression is the factored form of x cubed minus 8? There are a couple of things you can do to factor this. If you remember your factoring pattern, which says that if I have a cubed minus b cubed, then that's going to factor into a minus b, just the cube root of each of those, times the trinomial over here. And the trinomial is going to be your a squared. Multiply these together and it would be negative ab. So change the sign to that, positive ab. And then square the last one. If you square something, whether it's positive or negative, it's going to end up positive. So this is always going to be a plus, and then that last thing squared. So this is a factoring pattern that we could use for the x cubed minus 8. The other thing you could do is graph this and find one of the zeros, and the zero that you're going to find is going to be this factor right here. And then you could divide by that factor that goes with that zero, and that would give you this result over here. I'm going to use the factoring pattern. So my binomial right here is just going to be the cube root of each of these. So x minus cube root of 8 is 2. And then I'm going to build my trinomial over here, square the x, multiply these together, and I get negative 2x. So I'm going to change that sign to positive 2x. And then if I square negative 2, I'm going to get a positive 4. And you can see that that matches with C. And the other thing that you could do, since you have the answer choices, is you could just start multiplying these together and see which one simplifies to x cubed minus 8.